Love, the hidden force that both heals and hurts. Love is one of the greatest mysteries of human existence. It's not something that always makes sense, and it rarely follows logic. At times, it's warm and comforting, like a gentle breeze on a spring morning. Other times, it can be cold, confusing, and even painful, like being lost in a fog you can't escape. Anyone who has ever loved deeply knows that love is never just one thing. It can fill your heart with joy one moment and leave you breathless with heartache the next. Imagine this. You feel a strong bond with someone. You sense their energy when they're near, and even when they're far, something inside you feels connected to them. Everything feels right, until suddenly they begin to pull away. They don't fight with you, they don't explain, they simply go silent. Their presence fades, replaced by distance and coldness. And you're left wondering what went wrong. Most people would say that this is the clearest sign of lost interest. That love has ended, that they've moved on. But what if that's not the truth? What if silence and withdrawal aren't signs of rejection, but signs of something much deeper? What if pulling away is not a lack of emotion, but the result of love becoming too much to handle? Carl Jung, one of the most influential minds in psychology, taught us that the human soul is vast and layered. He introduced the concept that our minds are split into two main realms, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious mind is where our daily thoughts and intentions live. It's the part of us we think we control. But the unconscious? That's where things get interesting. That's where our fears, traumas, hidden desires, and long-buried memories live, often without us even knowing. In love, we think we're making choices based on what we want. But more often than not, it's our unconscious that leads the way. It whispers fears into our ears. It pulls strings behind the scenes. It pushes us to act in ways we can't explain, sabotaging the very connection we crave most. Falling in love is a powerful experience. The person we love becomes a mirror, reflecting back to us not only our dreams and hopes, but also our shadows and scars. Through them, we see not just the beauty we long for, but also the pain we've tried to bury. And not everyone is ready to face what love reveals. For some, love is overwhelming, not because it's false, but because it's real. So real that it wakes up parts of the self they thought were long asleep. It brings insecurities to the surface. It shines a light on old wounds. It stirs up fears they thought they had overcome. And in that moment of intensity, the unconscious mind kicks in like a defense system. It says, run. Not because the love isn't there, but because it's too much, too powerful, too close, and closeness for some feels like danger. This instinct to pull away isn't always a conscious choice. It's not about playing games or losing interest. It's a reflex, a psychological response triggered when love touches something deep inside, something fragile, something unhealed. Many people have been taught to see love as a safe space, a warm place where everything makes sense. But that's not always true. Real love shakes the ground we walk on. It brings to light our deepest doubts. It reminds us of every time we've been hurt, betrayed, or abandoned. And when someone feels those old fears creeping in, their mind might push them to step back, to retreat. Not because they want to, but because something inside them is terrified of being seen, of being vulnerable, of losing control. Jung believed that what we refuse to face within ourselves never disappears. It simply shows up in our relationships. If someone believes deep down that love leads to pain, then the moment they start to care deeply, their unconscious might whisper, "Protect yourself." And they do, by distancing, ignoring, or going silent. On the outside, this behavior seems cruel or confusing. Why would someone who loves you suddenly pull away? Why would they ignore the very person they care about? The answer is buried deep in the psyche. Love is not just sweet words and warm feelings. It's a force, raw and powerful. And like any force, it can be overwhelming. For many people, emotional closeness is something they both desire and fear. They want to be seen and known, but they also fear what might happen if they let someone see their most vulnerable self. So they act in ways that seem contradictory. They reach out, then disappear. They express love, then retreat into silence. They want the connection, but fear the intimacy. And the deeper the connection grows, the louder that fear becomes. When someone feels overwhelmed by how much they care, they may feel the need to take space, not because they don't love, but because they do, deeply. And that depth scares them. When silence speaks louder than words, the painful truth behind emotional withdrawal. When someone you love begins to ignore you, your mind instantly races. You ask yourself what you did wrong, where things went off track. But what if this reaction isn't about you at all? What if the silence you're experiencing has more to do with their inner struggle than with anything you said or did? It's important to understand that emotional withdrawal is often not a conscious decision. It's not a calculated move or an intentional rejection. Rather, it's a form of self-protection, a defense mechanism that rises from the most hidden corners of the human psyche. Sometimes, people pull away not because they don't care, but because they care too much, and they don't know how to handle it. The worst thing you can do in this moment is chase after them, demanding answers or begging for their presence. If they're pulling away due to fear, pressure will only make them retreat further. Love, in its purest form, is never about control or possession. It's about allowing space. It's about having the strength to let someone face their shadows without pushing them to do so on your timeline. And here's something that may surprise you. Distance, for some, becomes a test. Not consciously, but deep down, some people create space to see if love can survive it. They want to know if the connection is strong enough to endure silence, absence, and uncertainty. Can love remain even when it isn't constantly fed with words or attention? This behavior may feel unfair, and in many ways it is. But it's also deeply human. For those who fear emotional dependency or being overwhelmed by love, distancing themselves is a way to breathe. It's a desperate attempt to stay in control of something that feels all-consuming. Still, using distance as a test often reveals emotional immaturity. True love does not require tests. It doesn't need silence to prove its strength. Real love is built on trust, on being present, not on pushing people away to see if they'll come back. And if they do come back, the real question becomes, have they grown during that distance, or are they still stuck in the same emotional patterns? Because love that disappears and reappears without growth is not love, it's confusion. But what if they don't come back? What happens then? This question terrifies many. But here's the truth. If someone leaves and never returns, their departure was never a loss. It was a lesson. True love is not about clinging to someone at all costs. It's about allowing them the freedom to choose you and the maturity to accept if they don't. Too often, we treat love like a battle to be won or a treasure to be protected. But love, in its truest form, is not about permanence. It's about transformation. Some people enter our lives not to stay, but to awaken something inside us. Their presence teaches us joy. Their absence teaches us strength. Sometimes we learn more from the silence they leave behind than from the words they once shared. Their departure forces us to look inward and confront the emptiness we feel. What truly hurts? Is it their loss, or the part of ourselves they exposed? That's where real growth begins. because even painful love is a mirror. It shows us what we're afraid to see. It touches places in our soul that we've kept hidden, even from ourselves. And in doing so, it opens a door to healing that we might never have found on our own. There's something else we often overlook. Many people don't even know why they're pulling away. They don't understand their own reactions. They aren't aware that love has stirred up old pain or reawakened fears they never processed. They move away without clarity, without intent, because their unconscious is leading the way. Carl Jung spoke about the power of projections. When someone runs away from love, they may not be running from you, but from an image of themselves that love has brought to the surface. Your love may have held up a mirror, and they couldn't bear to look. That's why chasing someone in these moments rarely works. Not because you aren't worthy of love, but because they aren't yet ready to face what love demands of them. The question isn't, why did they leave? But, will they return with new eyes? With deeper understanding? Some never will. They'll continue to repeat the same patterns, running from intimacy, fearing vulnerability. But others will return, changed. Not because you begged or waited, but because they've done the inner work. They've confronted their fears. And now they're capable of real love. Because real love requires maturity. It asks for courage. It demands that we face not only the beauty in another, but also the storms within ourselves. Yes, love is powerful enough to heal, but also powerful enough to terrify. Not everyone who ignores you does so because they don't care. Sometimes they care so deeply that it shakes their entire identity, it rattles their foundation, and they don't yet know how to live in that kind of truth. If you're experiencing this kind of distance, don't only look outward for answers. Look inward. Ask yourself what this moment is teaching you. What has their silence awakened in you? Is it fear of abandonment? Is it a sense of worthlessness? Is it a wound that was never healed? Because the most profound love we can discover is the one that helps us understand ourselves. And as Jung once said, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Real love does not need to be chased. If it is true, it will always find its way back. Maybe not today, maybe not in the way you expect, but it will return. Not as something to fill a void, but as something that helps you become more whole. So now, let me ask you, have you ever experienced a love that left just when it felt most real? Share your story in the comments, because authentic love is not a chain, it's a journey, a path of awakening. Sometimes it draws near, other times it moves away. And often, when someone walks away from us, they are not running from us, but from the truth our love has revealed in them. And if it's meant to be, they'll find their way back, stronger, wiser, and ready.